Okay, let's clear this up once and for all. I decided to do this live. It's not the sort of YouTube video that I would do live, but I've decided to do it live, so we may do some Q&A after, depending on how long I can rant here for. I'm in that kind of mood, so I will go on this. Basic premise here, can you eat unlimited portions, unlimited amounts of food on a plant-based diet? Can you do that? And I suppose there's an end to that question, which should be to lose weight, because that's what most people will be thinking. That's what most people who check out my channel will be thinking. But ultimately, can you eat unlimited portions on a plant-based diet? No, of course not. What absolute poppycock that is. What absolute rubbish that is. My first point on this, and I'm going to go through this one by one by one. I've got a lot to say on this. My first point is people don't listen. I honestly get people writing me. I cannot believe it. Every single day now, whether it's on Instagram, YouTube, email, saying, Rye, I heard what Dr. McDougall said. I know I can eat as much as I want. I know I can eat unlimited on a plant-based diet, on a starch-based diet. And I'm just like, what? 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 Either you're completely misunderstanding or you're being a touch disingenuous. I don't know. I would, of course, think that the vast majority of people that write me aren't being disingenuous on purpose. But to argue that McDougall actively is out there saying, eat as much as you want, that'll be fine, you'll lose weight, you won't gain weight by eating as much as you want, even if it starches. It's rubbish. That is not what he's saying. I have never once heard him say those exact words. McDougall said you can eat as much as you want. Ryan Adams, I saw a video from you, Ryan, where you said you blah, 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 blah. No, he didn't. No, I didn't. No, very, very rarely. There's one or two figureheads in the plant-based movement that are saying such a thing, but none of them doctors. None of them doctors. There is one, to be fair, to be absolutely fair, there's one Q&A I've seen where McDougall makes a massive, massive blunder in saying something along the lines of you can eat unlimited, he's quoting a study, you can eat unlimited bread. I can't remember it word for word, but this, I believe, was displacement theory, the idea that by having this bread in your diet, you would be missing out on this, this, and this that you ordinarily would eat. That sort of displacement theory. As you get in a bath, the water goes up, some water falls out the bath, yada, yada, yada. You guys know that, I don't need to lecture you on. That basic displacement idea. But McDougall didn't correctly highlight that in the Q&A video, and that's where I've, once or twice, I've had a couple of disagreements with Dr. McDougall's stance on things, but everyone makes a mistake. I've made plenty on this channel. So, yeah, never have I heard McDougall say such a thing. Yet constantly people quote McDougall on this. They're not quoting McDougall, but seemingly incorrectly paraphrase McDougall in saying, well, I believed I could eat as much as I want. And then, of course, there are a bunch of YouTubers out there who are constantly saying, let's eat as much as you can eat as much as you want. Here's what I eat, blah, 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 blah. Also, that's people's perceptions. My first point on this is, are they saying that? Are they actually doing that? Are they actually saying that? Okay, because with McDougall, he's not saying that. With me, I never say you can eat as much as you want and still lose weight. I never say you can eat unlimited. And this is where we've lost that nuanced thought. I don't know if this is symptomatic of my generation nowadays. I don't know, but we've lost that nuanced thought whereby lots of things can coexist and we can go deeply on things and we don't think so binary. And here's a classic example is, well, exactly what we're talking about. The difference between you can eat as much as you want and still lose weight on a plant-based diet and you can eat lots and still possibly lose weight on a plant-based diet. Those two things are not one and the same. Those two things are entirely different, but people miss that constantly. And I've been trying to get to the bottom of why people miss that. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's our culture nowadays, like I say, with this non-binary, non-nuanced thinking. I don't know. And you can see this in political life. You can see this when these semi-taboo, they shouldn't be taboo, but these semi-taboo subjects come up, like religion, like politics, like nutrition, and so on. People just so divided and so binary. It's absolutely atrocious thinking. It really is garbage. But there's no nuance to any thought. And again, we see this with nutrition all the time. You see this even within what should be a very united group of vegans and plant-based dieters and the like. This should be a united force that are looking for positive change. Yeah, there's so much infighting on these very sort of basic sound bites, and it's quite pathetic at the end of the day. But just to get back to my previous point and not ramble too much here, look, there's a huge difference between unlimited and you can eat good portions and still lose. I take that stance. McDougall takes that stance. Dr. Neil Barnard, we all say the same thing on this, which is, generally speaking, there are, of course, semantics here at play. Everyone has a slightly different style, approach, and stance and whatnot, interpretation. And by the way, I'm not putting myself in that same esteemed group as the McDougalls, and like I'm certainly not a medical doctor, I'm just a weight loss coach at the end of the day. But, you know, the bottom line is you can eat well on this diet and still lose weight at the same time. What do I mean by this? I mean that the fiber, the low calorie density of many of these foods, especially those starches, again, the fruits and the veggies and whatnot, or at least most of them, you know, the nutritional diversity of these foods, which means you can tap into your hunger signals a lot more readily than if you're having a bunch of processed junk in your diet. All of these factors allow you to actually generously on this diet have the potential, it's not always guaranteed, to feel truly full and satisfied, because that's really important, feeling truly satiated, especially whilst in a weight loss phase. It can be hard to actually get to that stage, can't it? A lot of people, that's very counterintuitive. To lose weight, I must be deprived, I must be hungry. That's the association people often make. And that's why this diet was so, at first anyway, profound to me. It's been profound to me in many ways. But that was what stood out to me first, just being able to feel really full and satisfied while still slimming down at the same time. Absolutely remarkable. And so I've lost my train of thought slightly there, but these are the characteristics of this diet: the low calorie density, as I say, the high fiber content, the nutritional diversity, to name a few. There are more as well. Beyond that, we can talk about the negative calorie effect, We can talk about, as an extension of that, how plant foods, the digestion rather of plant foods is actually more efficient in terms of calorie burn than other foods. We can throw in a couple more characteristics there, but quite simply, this diet, what it can allow you to do in terms of eating well, in terms of the portion size, feeling truly full and satisfied, it's incomparable. It doesn't compare to anything else. Keto diet, paleo diet doesn't allow you to do it. Now, it depends what you eat under those different diet umbrellas, but generally, what you could do with a plant-based diet, especially a starch-based one, it's unprecedented. It's absolutely incredible. Blew my mind. But again, there's a huge difference between what I've said there, again, a lot more detailed and nuanced. I'm actually citing what I mean by this. I'm not just putting out these blanket statements. This is why I find it really hard to make 3-minute videos. And this is why people often tell me that I talk too much. It's because I want to get, and I think there's truth to that, but I do want to get a more sort of nuanced, more intelligent, if I could say that about myself, sounds very arrogant, but you guys know what I mean. I want to actually discuss a subject rather than go, you can eat as much as you, like all these ridiculous, eat as much. I want to explain, okay, you can eat well, but consider this. Here's why you can eat well, this, and this. Here's why some people might struggle with portions and might need to think more about portions and calories. This. These two things can coexist. It can be true that a plant-based diet allows you to eat big and lose weight at the same time, but it also can be true that one might need to manage their portions on a plant-based diet and consider calories on a plant-based diet. The two can coexist. Whereas in some people's minds, it's like, no, that's awful. That's teaching people eating disorders. Again, ridiculous, pathetic, tribal, unnuanced thought. You guys have probably never heard me revved up, but it's absolutely something I see time and time again. And I must get this across. I feel obligated to get this across because I think when we can just have a more nuanced thought ourselves, what that can do in terms of our own weight loss, health, nutrition efforts, whatever our particular goals are. I mean, it's infinite, isn't it, in terms of the benefit that understanding a bit more of the detail can actually have, rather than these basic sound bites. And you take action on that sound bite, and you soon find, actually, there's this caveat, there's this asterisk. Actually, this might be an example of how this plan I'm following might not be so wise, might not be so appropriate. And if I just had a bit more of a detailed understanding, I'd have known this. So had that foresight, had that knowledge. But again, we live in binary times, don't we, folks? So. If you do have questions, by the way, I think there's a few amassing in the chat. We'll get to it. I will get to it. But I'm not done on this subject because this is really winding me up right now. And again, this is against no one personally. This is the culture we're in. This is the sort of online space as well. All of these simple statements just being thrown around. So just to cut back to my point on this. These two things are very different. One, you can eat in limited portions. Two, you can eat well and potentially lose weight fairly easy on this approach to nutrition. I agree with the latter. McDougall sides with the latter. Barnard, again, repeatedly, time after time. Dr. Greer sides with the latter. There is some very, very minor 1, 2, 3% disagreements between these folks in the grand scheme of things. You know, even I have the audacity, goodness forbid, to just cite one or two of Dr. McDougall's ideas and say, you know what, here's where I disagree with this, or here's where I might put an asterisk on this myself, and this is what I've learned in my coaching practice. This is what I've learned myself. How dare I do such a thing? But no, this is, you know, and again, I don't mean to put myself in the same category as those esteemed folk. No way near, and very different in terms of what we both do. I'm not a medical doctor, I must stress that. But yeah, the bottom line with many of these folks is, look, you can eat well. But again, I get messy. What if that's the case? If they're all stressing this, and if none of them are saying anything along the lines of you can eat as much as you want, you're still going to lose weight as long as it's plant foods or as long as it's starch or whatever it is. For some reason, I still get people write me every day like, right, McDougall said this, blah, blah, blah. So, first part of this problem, first part of this big misunderstanding why people think you can eat as much as you want on a plant-based diet is because people don't listen. And that's just life, whatever. I do it all the time. I'm not on any moral high ground with this. But people don't listen, that's number one. They hear what McDougall says or they hear what another YouTuber says, and either A, maybe they do hear some bad advice in the first instance, but you're certainly not getting that from the top doctors out there. But they do hear some bad advice in the first instance, but more likely B, they hear something that sounds like maybe a bias that they already have, or they just don't listen correctly, or maybe the analysis on their end is not so smart, and so they come away with this perception, with this conclusion that so-and-so told me that I could eat as much as I want, I don't have to worry about blah, 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 blah. So that's the first big problem. People perhaps not listening correctly or getting bad advice, but I do think the advice is sound in the vast majority part out there in the vegan plant-based world. I disagree with fellow weight loss coaches, fellow YouTubers, some of the plant-based doctors on one or two things. I know, how dare I, the audacity, but I do, it's just life, isn't it? You don't agree with anyone 100% politically or on matters of religion or philosophy or anything, do you? You don't agree with your partner or your best friend on a great many things. You don't support the same football team, do you? So this is absolutely normal and it's absolutely fine. So that's the first problem. Again, I've already highlighted another problem with this is, I think a lot of this thought that you can eat as much as you want on a plant-based diet is very symptomatic of these ridiculous binary views we have about things. No nuanced thought allowed whatsoever is there, especially when it comes to nutrition. Here's a comment. I'm going to get a comment. And by the way, if I look distracted, guys, it's just because I've got my laptop here so I can follow the comments and film on my phone at the same time. But here's a comment here that I got on a Starch Solution video because this is the perfect illustration. And I've got no issue with this person's comment. There's a few comments from people here, but I've got none of the issues with these people's comments. You'll hear my responses to them. I'll be very fair. I'll read everything out. But this is exactly what I'm talking about. And again, this might sound tedious, folks. This might sound like a bit of a self-indulgent rant. But I think if you can wrap your head around the idea that lots of things can coexist, and you must have a very, how should I put it, multifaceted analysis of nutrition to really maximize your results. I think this what I'm about to read you is a good example of it at play and how you really need to be thinking beyond just hearing, okay, Dr. Greger said this, McDougall said this, Ryan Adams said this, I'm going to apply it, McDougall said that, whatever it is, and just apply that without any rounded thought or without any context. That's a big thing as well. Context is so important. So this is on a video titled Weight Gain on the Starch Solution. Here's why. I covered a couple of things in that video from memory. My main point on it was, look, it is possible that you do gain weight on the starch solution because you're eating too much. Is it hard to do? Yes. Does a starch-based diet, similarly to a more rounded plant-based diet, allow you to eat generous portions and still lose weight? Yeah, absolutely. But that doesn't mean it automatically happens for everyone. Again, I'm putting my case forward for non-blanket, non-broad ideas, thinking more nuanced, breaking down a subject and saying, okay, this can be true, but this can also be true. I know it looks like they contradict, but here's exactly why. Here's the scenario where this might not be the case or for this particular person. So a more nuanced and rounded view. Person commented back, I think that a lot of people who have had success right away with losing weight on the starch solution are missing a huge factor in terms of those not losing weight. Open bracket, as I am one of those people, close bracket. Many people are coming from very low calorie diets, so they are going to gain weight once they start eating to their hunger levels. They are not overeating. They just need to gain weight initially so that their bodies trust that there will be optimal amounts of food coming in regularly and no longer need to store excess weight anymore. but this does come with an initial weight gain period. You can only fix that by continuing to eat to your hunger levels and telling people that eating too much is only going to make it worse. This is what causes eating disorders like it did for me, where I was working out twice a day and eating under 1,000 calories and still finding it difficult to lose weight. So, by the way, this is just one person's comment. We'll get onto the others later because there's an interesting one after this, actually, from somebody else, after my response to this, actually. Now, I actually agree with a great bunch of this. But again, there isn't nuance here. This is the problem. Actually, it starts out being somewhat individualistic, but as it goes on, we get, I'll break it down for you, but this is what causes eating disorders. So we hear this time and time again. There is, especially in the high carb movement, there is a very sort of, again, I don't expect everyone under the vegan/plant-based umbrella to agree on everything. Of course, I expect there to be small disagreements. But generally speaking, people come together on a very bottom line, which is eat lots of plants, get lots of fiber in your diet, get the junk out, do a bit of exercise. That is, that's very simplistic, isn't it? But that's the bottom line for people. Now, constantly, from a more counterculture, high carb, sub-niche, if you will, in the vegan plant-based umbrella, let's say, you constantly get that group of people, lots of ideas in that group of people saying, anyone who and they literally say this sometimes, and I am paraphrasing, anyone who talks about limiting portions, anyone who talks about calories is promoting eating disorders. Okay, this is big in sort of, especially more the raw vegan movement as well, but that high carb movement. This is a big idea in that movement. Again, I agree with that movement on a great many things, a great litany of things. I agree with them more so than I disagree with them on nutrition as a whole. Absolutely, by far and away. But again, you constantly hear this. Anyone that talks about calorie counting, anyone that talks about portions is promoting eating disorders. Absolute rubbish. Absolute rubbish. That is a dangerous idea. They always argue, or this group often argues, or people, I should say more specifically, in this group often argues that McDougall, Dr. Greg are promoting eating disorders because they talk about calories sometimes, because they talk about portions. I have been accused of such things too. Absolute rubbish. To count your calories, to think about portions, does not automatically give you an eating disorder. Could it be that you take these things too far? Could it be that your calorie deficit is outrageously large if you're wishing to lose weight? Could it be that you get very neurotic about the scale, weighing out certain foods and, being so worried about eating out for fear of getting a little bit of oil in your diet once in a while? Could you get a little bit crazy about these things? Could you be on the verge of maybe one day developing somewhat of an eating disorder, however we define that, because of these behaviors? Of course, I would be bonkers to deny that. But it isn't true that simply, because this is how binary some people think, simply being considerate of one's calories and portions, that doesn't equate to eating disorders. But again, we hear that from that sub sort of culture, that counterculture really movement in the vegan plant-based world. We hear this all the time. I probably don't need to name names. I think you guys will know some of the figureheads that espouse some of these ideas. And again, these figureheads I agree with on the vast majority of things related to nutrition. But this is a nuance where I simply don't agree. Counting your calories, arguing that it is possible to eat too much food on a plant-based diet, which is absolutely measurable, it's completely objective. I've seen it time and time again. I've had so many people come to me that are eating the right food, simply too much. We fix that, they lose weight. It's all good. I have seen this so many times, it's outrageous. It's not even controversial in my mind. Yet, for the argument to be put forward then that counting calories immediately equals eating disorder. And by the way, I'm not a fan of counting calories. I can actually say, because again, I don't need these blanket like tribal, stances all the time. I can think more deeply, okay? And my audience can too. And so we don't need to constantly be told that, worrying about portions is, in other words, automatically an eating disorder. It's really, really condescending to say that to somebody, because the underbelly of that argument is, look, you don't understand. It has to be yes or no. It's black and white. It's hot or cold. Do this, don't do this. You've got an eating disorder if you care about the volume of food. Again, this is something that's provably measurable, that you can be eating too much. I've seen it time and time again on a plant-based, starch-based diet, whatever it is. So, is it hard to do? Yes. But these two things can coexist. It can be true that it is easy to lose weight on a plant-based diet because of the volume of food you can eat. And it can also be true that it's possible to overeat on a plant-based diet. Goodness forbid! How could the two possibly exist? That's too much analysis for our minds. I mean, it's pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic. So this person's comment, just to go back to that, and I said I was going to be ranty, didn't I? I put that disclaimer out there at the start for anyone who's been here from the start. And thank you, by the way, for joining me today, folks. If you do have questions, put them in the chat. I will get to them after this little rant of mine. But this is really important. So again, I agree with this comment. I think there's great merit to this. And you'll see this in my response here. But that point, that's what really is sad to hear, that, you know, I mean, this person is in effect accusing me of promoting disordered eating as a result of perhaps warning people that it's absolutely possible to overeat on a starch-based diet. It absolutely, when you watch that video from me, if you do go back and watch that video, you absolutely can if you want. It's titled "Weight Gain on the Starch Solution. Here's Why." Just type starch solution on my channel. My channel, the search function in the top right, my channel homepage, you'll quickly find it. But lost my train of thought again, folks, because I'm all over the shop. But yes, to be told that I'm encouraging disordered eating because I absolutely do not deny the truth in my mind that it is possible to overeat on a plant-based diet, a starch-based diet, albeit hard to do for some people, that automatically means that I'm promoting eating disorders. It's just, this is where we've got to. It's just absolutely ridiculous. It's pathetic thought, it really is. And again, I must stress, I have no beef, pardon the pun, with this person. I have no vegan beef with this person. They're absolutely well-intentioned. I agree with the first part of their point. It is absolutely the case that many people do have very low-calorie diets, come to the starch solution, gain weight initially, and it isn't something to be feared. I do agree that that is always overeating. I mean, there's a point there about the person mentions many people are coming from very low-calorie diets, agree, so they are going to gain weight once they start eating to their hunger levels, sort of agree. The problem with that statement is, how can you trust somebody that's really struggled to regulate portions, struggled with their appetite, maybe struggles with emotional eating, to actually know what their hunger levels look like, to actually know the difference between physical and emotional hunger, which is something I'm constantly talking about because I realize it's something people do need more education on. That's why I dedicate a lot of chapter 9 of Mind Mastery to physical versus emotional hunger, because people don't understand it in my assessment, talking to hundreds of people over the course of a week as I do about weight loss. It isn't my assessment that people can trust their hunger signals all that readily nowadays. And so, you know, to again allow scope for somebody to eat to their hunger levels, we're in dangerous territory. But I do agree with the premise. I do agree that a lot of people coming from a low calorie background can gain when they first start eating on a starch-based diet, a plant-based diet, on any diet for that matter, and eating a few more calories. Yeah, of course they're going to gain in many, many, many cases. They could still be in a deficit. This is where it gets really complex, because we start talking about the metabolism here. We start talking about hormone function too. And this is really tricky. And you'll see that this is really tricky in my response. So again, just to sum up, this first person's comment, I actually agree with a lot of it. I think it's incredibly outrageous, frankly, to accuse me of promoting eating disorders. But hey ho, you get this sort of stuff a lot online. I most certainly don't take it personally. You'll see this in my response. So my response, this is a very, I even highlight very complex conversation. But yes, things like metabolic adaptation and adaptive thermogenesis, do often play a role in my assessment. Thank you for your comment. That's how I ended it. So yeah, what this person is talking about is perhaps damaged metabolism, adaptive thermogenesis, which we'll go down the rabbit hole a bit more on shortly. I've got another point on that after this. So I'm agreeing largely with this person. Then the next comment. So again, I'm not naming the usernames of these people, but this is exactly what I'm talking about with this lack of nuanced thought. At Ryan Adams Natural Weight Loss Mastery, he is exactly right by taking the advice of that comment. So this is in reference to that first comment about, yeah, I've just read it out, not my comment, not my video. He is exactly right by taking the advice of that comment. I was able to continue on the course and not feel defeated. Your video is false for a number of factors. Thank God I looked at the comments and took what you said with a grain of salt, as I'm today 7 pounds lighter. People just remain vigilant, stay off the scale, and the pounds will come off. Good luck. I actually think this comment has been edited since it was first written. It says in brackets edited, and it might have been toned down. But again, your video is false for a number of factors. Well, it could be false for a number of factors based on the individual, which again, if you watch my original video, I cover the ins and outs. I don't like to make, as I said earlier, these 2-minute videos. I like to give a more in-depth analysis and say for this person, this person, this person, this might not be the case. For this, it might not be the case. You know, I can't cater every single YouTube video I make to everyone. Even in a 40-minute video, even in this live stream here, we'll be going 25 minutes. We'll go a bunch more, we'll probably double it. Even in this live stream here, I can't unpack every single element of this conversation I'm having for every single person. There are always exceptions. The problem is we now live in a society that's so easy to be offended that it doesn't even think, oh, this person might be thinking of a couple of exceptions. I could even mention my exceptions, like I did in this case, and the person just cuts right through it and says, your video is false for a number of factors. Preposterous. Again, I have no beef with this person. I am rather disappointed at the culture, how people think, how people interact online, more than I am this individual. You can write what you want on my YouTube videos. I don't delete comments, unless they're those weird spam, go to this cam site, watch this strange video, here's a strange link to some, you know, odd Eastern European Russian website or some Chinese website. But if you just write a comment and you disagree with me, even if you do it rudely like this person, I don't care. That's fine. I've got thick skin. But the problem is this lack of nuanced thought. So of course my response, he might be exactly right for you. Not once in my video did I advocate extreme calorie deficits. Regardless, I'm glad you're on the right path. Well done. I sincerely say that. I'm glad that person is on the right path. But that's the point. Isn't that a perfect example of no nuanced thought? He might be exactly right for you is what I said, which doesn't make the video wrong, which doesn't make the idea that you can overeat on a plant-based diet wrong just because this person had a different story or a different experience. This is the time we live in. Well, I experienced this, so that can't possibly be true. What? I thank my generation. I don't thank my generation for this, but I think this is hugely my generation. It's really awful. It's absolutely awful. So again, I might sound like I'm going on a self-indulgent rant here, but I think it's really important to understand that I really encourage you to have a bit of nuanced thought when it comes to your education on this subject. If you're wanting to lose weight, if you're wanting to learn a bit more about nutrition to improve your own health and well-being, don't just go out, listen to a 2-minute soundbite, and then live your life by it. Think more widely, think more deeply. Listen to opposing opinions, and after time, I know it can be overwhelming at first, absolutely, I get that, but after time you'll pick up on the nuance yourself. You'll be able to play devil's advocate yourself, couple that with your own experiences, and you'll be able to point things out. You'll be able to look at the details and go, okay, this worked for me then, here's why it didn't work for me then, rather than getting angry or frustrated or flip-flopping or looking for the latest, quick sort of, you can eat as much as you want, like tribal point to take on this. Because even under the plant-based umbrella, as I said earlier, there's so much infighting. It really is pathetic. So yeah, this is a really big problem with this. So again, I think another reason, just to sum up, why people believe you can eat unlimited amounts on a plant-based diet, falsely I argue, I think this is a false belief. I do not think that everyone can eat unlimited amounts on a plant-based diet and not have to worry about their weight. In fact, I think it's a really bad idea. But I think another cause of that is just that sort of binary, unnuanced thinking that we seem to have nowadays culturally. And my first point, just to go back to it, is people don't listen. If you're just joining me in the chat, say hello, let me know your question, I will get to it. The chat is popping. I've got a lot to catch up on when I get back to it. So thanks for bearing with me, folks. Hope you're finding this useful rather than me just rambling. But I think there is a point to this. I am just rambling. But there is a point to this. Also, what I'll mention is, how do you diagnose metabolic damage, just off the previous point? Because this is really tricky, because it's absolutely true. Metabolic damage just does exist. Adaptive thermogenesis is a thing. There are people that start a plant-based diet and do gain weight, and it isn't actually something to be worried about. And again, in the high-carb movement now, you constantly hear, plant-based doctors, they refuse to talk about metabolic damage. That's shady. They're misleading their audience, yada, yada, yada. Again, ridiculous. My sympathy is with a plant-based doctor that doesn't talk that much about metabolic damage, because it's so hard to be objective about. It's so hard to measure. Very limited science on it as well. When you take somebody and let's say you give them a calorie amount to eat every day, if they don't lose weight, even though you thought they would, even if you planned their calorie intake as though they would with every factor every factor added up, do you immediately conclude that there's a problem with their metabolism? Well, no, not necessarily. It could be underlying health issues, could be hormonal, it could be something else related. Excuse me, it could be another health issue that's causing problems with the metabolism that isn't actually necessarily related to the metabolism. So again, this is nuanced thought. This isn't just, I'm not losing weight, I'm eating this many calories, therefore I've got metabolic damage. It's like, it's, we need a little bit more thought on these things. So again, constantly you hear in the high carb movement, plant-based doctors, they refuse to talk about metabolic damage. Why don't you talk about metabolic damage? People get very angry about this. And I understand why, because metabolic damage does exist. Adaptive thermogenesis is a thing. People do suffer from it. Is it most people? No, not in my assessment. And again, how do you even diagnose it? How do you clinically come to the conclusion that somebody's got metabolic damage unless they have a very obvious disease, or condition related to the metabolism? How do you come to that conclusion? It is so difficult. How do you sit there and measure a person on that, on the speed of their metabolism, or how damaged their metabolism might be for years of dieting? How do you measure that? It's difficult. And I agree. I do think there are some plant-based doctors out there that I think they ought to talk a little bit more about adaptive thermogenesis and metabolic damage and these issues, and maybe the hormonal side of weight loss as well. Having said that, Dr. Neil Bernard's got some great work, on the hormonal side of health. Maybe not just necessarily related to weight loss, but certainly more widely health and well-being. He talks about hormones quite a bit, and the others do too, to varying degrees. But in terms of metabolic damage, no, it isn't something that comes up, but I totally understand why, and I don't demonize those people for not talking about metabolic damage so much. I don't give myself a hard time for not talking about metabolic damage, so much either, because one, most people don't suffer from it, and two, how on earth do you even get to the bottom of even measuring the darn thing, excuse my language anyway? How do you even come to that assessment? And then how do you think, okay, what's the right path forward for this person? Because a lot of people's response to metabolic damage is eat as much as you want and you'll fix yourself, which is absolutely preposterous. I just wrote a community post about this actually just shortly before going live, funnily enough. It actually wasn't related to this, but it's just popped into my mind, whereby a lot of people, if they do believe they're suffering from metabolic damage, their answer is to add 1,000 calories to their diet, because one YouTuber said that they're not eating enough and therefore by eating more they'll actually lose more weight. Sounds counterintuitive. By the way, I've seen this. This is absolutely something that can happen to those with metabolic damage. Those that, with adaptive thermogenesis very much present in their system. Yeah, you can actually increase especially if you're in a low-calorie deficit for a long time. And I do this with one or two of my clients, by the way. We have these reset weeks sometimes with my longer-term clients where we bring them up to maintenance, or even in some cases a very small surplus in terms of their calories, if we are tracking their calories, which I don't do with most of my clients because it's not really in my philosophy. Or at least meticulously tracking calories, I should say. We always have some idea. It would be unwise to disregard that altogether. But yeah, and we have these resets anyway that allow their metabolism to catch up on the hormones and whatnot before maybe bringing them back down into a deficit again. For instance, again, this is not a technique that I use all that much, but I do this. I do do this with one or two clients. But the answer is not to go 1,000 calories above overnight. That would be astronomically unwise in my assessment. You are going to put on a bunch of fat, and you're going to do it quick as well when you do that. So you do things in increments. You allow things to heal. Things take time, especially the metabolism. You do it slowly. You allow the body to adjust rather than flip-flopping 1,000 calories, blah, blah, blah. Again, you see this in the high-carb vegan movement a lot. You're not eating enough. You need to have 4,000 calories a day. I'm having 4,000 calories. You might not be anything like that person that has 4,000 calories a day. They might, number one, be at their weight loss goal. Number two, be a great deal taller than you. Number three, be a different gender, a different age, more muscle mass, less muscle mass. They might have entirely different activity levels, entirely different fitness performance. Not to mention, because this plays a role in weight loss, this plays a role in health too, genetics, I know. Genetic predispositions, often overrated in sort of the mainstream health world. We often hear the mainstream health world constantly going on about genetics, putting it up on a pedestal as being one of the biggest sort of contributors to people's weight loss and health success and whatnot. Not true in my assessment. It's an influential factor. But let's get it straight. It's often put up on a pedestal. The science makes it pretty clear that genetic predispositions do indeed play a role in health and well-being, the prevention of major chronic disease, but not as much as many people would have you believe anyway. So, yeah, I've lost my train of thought again, folks, but how do you diagnose metabolic damage? Do many people suffer from metabolic damage? Yeah, overall, in the whole population, for sure. Many people in the dieting world, absolutely, who have low-calorie diets for many, many a year. Is that most people that I work with? Is that most people that come to me? No, it's not most people, it's a lot of people, but it's certainly not most. It's definitely a minority, and even then, how do you begin to measure it? So I think, again, I'm going on and on here, but these are all the reasons I think why people believe that you can eat unlimited amounts on a plant-based diet falsely, and why they refuse to change, why they refuse, after months and months of weight gain or months and months of no weight loss when they want to lose weight, to actually leave this ideology they have that you can eat as much as you want. People really struggle to leave that idea. People really romantically cling on to the idea that they can eat as much as they want on a plant-based diet and it will all work out just fine. And it will somehow magically come off once the body adapts, once the metabolism gets used to what they're feeding it. Sometimes that is the case, folks, but in most cases it's absolutely not. And then we have to look at the exact strategy they're taking to sort of balance out the metabolism again. But I think all of that's important to mention. So in summary, can you eat unlimited amounts on a plant-based diet? No. Can you eat lots on a plant-based diet potentially and still lose weight because of the characteristics of many of these plant foods? Yes, you absolutely can, but it's a big difference, folks. So if you're struggling with weight loss right now, needless to say, it could be a number of things, and it might be, just on that last point once more, it might be that you've got hormonal issue and metabolic damage. It might be that you gain weight initially and then it drops off, even if your calories, quote unquote, don't change all that much. That can happen. For the vast majority of people, in my experience, that isn't how it happens, that isn't what works, that isn't necessarily the case. And so we just need a more rounded and nuanced view instead of just thinking, okay, I'm not losing weight, it must be my hormones, it must be metabolic damage. No, you can very well overeat on a plant-based diet, folks. It's absolutely my assessment. Now, then we've got to talk about, and I'm not going to do this in this video, but then we've got to start thinking about, okay, what are you overeating on? Is it a type of food? Is it a macronutrient? Is it generally an overall calorie surplus caused by everything? And it's just that very fact that's stopping you. Whatever it is possible to overeat on a plant-based diet. And that's my main message today, because there's a lot of people out there looking at the scale, they're hearing these ideas from other figureheads in the plant-based world, or they're comparing to someone else's experience. Maybe they're not listening, as I said earlier, quite correctly, quite fairly. And so they're naively thinking, oh, I'm going to at some point drop. I'm going to some point drop, but I don't need to change the amount I'm eating. I don't need to look at my portions. I don't need to be somewhat, at least. I don't think you have to be neurotic about calories, but somewhat considerate of calories. I'm not going to do any of that stuff because it's suddenly going to magically drop when I get to this adjustment point. It's tricky, folks. It's muddy water. It's a big grey area. And there is merit to this idea, again, of metabolic damage, adaptive thermogenesis. But generally speaking, this doesn't seem, in my assessment, to be something that most people are suffering with. So, yeah, please let go of this idea. If you're struggling with weight loss right now, please let go of this idea that you can eat unlimited. Start being willing to challenge yourself, to go against your ego, to go against the things you've learned. I know you look up to some of the people that have maybe taught you these things, that you've perceived that they've taught you. Maybe that's not exactly what they're saying, but you're taking that. You have to be able to let go of this idea. This is a principle I actually talk about quite a lot in the last 10 pounds program. And the basic idea is people get very romantically attached to A, what worked for them in the past, or B, what turned them vegan or plant-based. So if there's a certain idea that turns you vegan or plant-based, like if you went plant-based because you believed that it would allow you to eat unlimited amounts, it's going to be very hard for you to actually break that while still being plant-based, because that's one of the reasons why you got into this. That was like a segue. That was like an opening of the proverbial door into this way of eating for you. So for you to turn your back against the gatekeeper that allowed you in that way, your ego's not going to like it. It's going to fight it. But you have to be willing to do this stuff. Again, in the last 10 pounds course, I constantly talk about you detaching from those ideas that maybe worked in the past or got you through the door in the past, and you evolving your thinking more deeply and getting more nuanced and listening to opposing opinions and then forming a view rather than just one person. So again, I think you can listen to too many people. I think you can get confused and overwhelmed, yada, yada, yada. But I'd rather you listen to lots of people than just one person on nutrition. I'd rather you watch a couple of other channels, read a couple of other books than just my stuff. I really, really would, and then come to your own conclusion. And if you're still aligned with me, then good, I must be doing something right, eh? I must be. So That would be my stance on this. Just to sum up once more, it might sound like I'm going around in circles, but I think it's important to mention, can you eat unlimited amounts on a plant-based diet and still lose weight at the same time? No, you absolutely cannot. Is there occasionally some genetic phenomenon or some phenomenon because of their eating habits, because of their activity levels, because of their age, because of their weight, because of their muscle mass, that sort of can eat very, very freely and they never ever seem to have to worry about their weight? Yeah, of course. Are one or two of them online? Maybe. Let me tell you, folks, there's a lot of things happening to my peers online. They're doing a lot of things in their day-to-day life that they're not telling you. They're not being fully transparent about. They might be getting on the camera. You see this with all the ex-vegans because they go, oh yeah, you know that time that I said that a vegan diet or a plant-based diet was, I could do this, this, and this on it. It wasn't actually true. I actually didn't feel that good. You see it with all the ex-vegans, you get that sort of reality check. So I'm not saying those ex-vegans are right about all of those things, by the way. But often anyway, when we are promoting this message, it's easy to just give the positives. I suppose I do this too. In ways that I can't even analyze and maybe not cover some of the potential negatives. I would like to think I do, but who knows? It's all with hindsight that this comes back to you after analysis. But I think that's really where I want to sum up on this before I maybe take a couple of questions. What do you guys think of what I've said here in the chat? Am I over-egging this? Is this more important? Is this less important than I'm maybe making it sound? Am I being unreasonable, do you think, in my rant here? I welcome the opinion. You are absolutely free to disagree. Again, we're not some binary place here. My audience isn't like this anyway, because generally speaking, as a YouTube creator, you get an audience that really aligns aligns with you and has a similar outlook to you. So I don't get these ridiculous comments often, but from time to time, like with yesterday, they do sneak up on you. Again, nothing to do with these individuals in question. This is really the culture and the thinking that I've got a problem with. So let me know your thoughts on this subject down below. Does this affect you? Are you perhaps overeating on a plant-based diet and in denial that you're potentially overeating on a plant-based diet, even if it's the right quote-unquote foods? I know there's a lot of people out there, you might not be with me now, but that will catch up with this video, and this absolutely will resonate with them because I've had enough conversations with people over the years to know that this is a big thing for people. And when I actually sit them down and say, okay, you're eating this, this, and this, there's a potential here that you're simply overeating. And they just go, oh. Sometimes they just need to hear it. Because they hear all these wonderful testimonials of people being able to eat as much as they want, all these sexy, glamorous testimonials, and then think, oh, okay, maybe I can't after all. And then they start doing it. They start being a bit more careful with their portions. And I'm not talking about a radical, again, binary thinking. If I were to say, worry about your portions a bit, be considerate of your portions. Oh, that means that Ryan advocates a massive calorie deficit. Again, another example of binary thinking. So, it's of course not what I'm advocating, obviously. So, but you do need to be conscious of calories at some stage, many of you, if you get to a plateau and you've tried everything else, every other troubleshooting method. You do need to be, and that's just the reality of it. So you've got to get romantically... you've got to get away from those romantic ideas that you can eat as much as you want, so-and-so did, or maybe you did earlier in your journey, but now you've stalled. I lost, when I was a bit heavier, I lost weight. I didn't seem to need to worry about this stuff. Well, guess what? Now you do. Get over it. I spoke about this in an Instagram post. I'm being very blunt here. I spoke about this in an Instagram post recently. One of the hardest parts about weight loss is acceptance of the strategies that you must take and letting go of ideas of the past, especially when you get to the last sort of 10, 15, 20 pounds. That's when you're really going to challenge yourself on things that worked first for you. You might have to do less of the exercise that worked for you at first. You might have to change your diet in a way that really contradicts what you were doing first. But you have to just get over it and get on with it. If you want the result that bad enough, if you're committed enough, it's going to be a no-brainer. But some people are on the fence with this stuff and clinging on to those ideas of the past. Let's do some questions. Perpetually Annoyed. Hello, Rye. Hi, welcome. Gem Rising. Hi, Ryan. Good to see you and you. Perpetually Annoyed. I've lost 25 pounds since our conference call. I'm truly grateful. Good. That's a nice testimonial for me. Thank you there. Can you eat unlimited non-starchy raw vegetables? Can you? Well, yeah, you could. Could you if you wanted to lose weight with everything I've just considered today, everything I've just covered today? Well, it depends what you want. Obviously, you can get away is the wrong term because we're talking about vegetables. I don't want you to think that you're very limited with vegetables. But you can, quote unquote, get away with eating lots of non-starchy raw vegetables more so than like a starch, like a whole grain, or more starchy vegetables. Obviously, there are foods and food groups that you've got more freedom with than others. That should go without saying. Maybe that's where I could give my little binary argument again. Oh, that can't exist. Blah, blah, blah. Like, the food groups are different. They're not all the same. Stop putting them into the same category. So can you eat unlimited non-starchy raw vegetables? No, again, is it possible to gain weight on a 100% non-starch raw vegetable diet? Well, it would be extremely difficult to do. It would be extremely difficult to do. It would be easier to gain weight on a potato-based diet, on a more starch-focused diet, than a non-starchy raw vegetable diet. Obviously. You're not going to hear of somebody, realistically, you're not going to hear of somebody gaining weight on a non-starchy raw vegetable diet. It's not going to happen, is it, realistically? Yeah, I don't think it's about eating as much as you want. This is Gem Rising. Rather, eat what you need to eat. Yeah, that's maybe a good reframe. Indiana Jones, the best username. I follow a plant-based whole food diet, and I find that after I eat meals which are normally 500 to 600 calories, I feel full, but I still want to eat more. Is that a sign of not enough protein? Could be. I would say that this happens quite a lot with people, is because of these plant foods and the fiber and the calorie density, the low calorie density that they offer, you can actually feel full without actually feeling satiated. That's a really important nuance point, actually, and this is something I've been meaning, actually, funnily enough, to make a video on for a couple of days. But there is a difference between being satiated and being full. Right now, Indiana Jones, sounds like you're getting full, but you're not getting fully satiated. What could help you get fully satiated? One, it could just be more calories required. I don't know anything about you, so maybe that 500 to 600 calories, depending on how many meals you have a day, and various other things, including where you are now, your goals, activity levels, and so on. Lots of other things that we couldn't possibly get into in a quick live stream here. But it's hard for me to say. Maybe it's just that you need 1, 2, 3, 4, 500 more calories on top of that meal. I'm not suggesting that. I don't know anything about you. But that is probably one thing for you rather to consider. That it's not necessarily the protein, but the calories. Generally speaking, if you get enough calories, you're going to take care of protein anyway, unless you're a crazy bodybuilder, which most people aren't. So, or you have crazy sort of muscle building ambition. You know, even most athletes, if they get enough calories, they're going to pick up enough protein. It's very hard to undereat on protein, really, really hard if you're getting enough calories, even from plants, because of that 14% number. Again, I'm not going to explain all that here. Go on Google, type in 14% protein from plants, and you'll get the argument I'm talking about. If you get enough calories, you're going to get enough protein per, you know, the World Health Organization's recommended protein amounts versus many RDAs from many health institutions, many reputable health institutions around the world. You're going to get enough protein if you're getting enough calories. Could be the protein, though. Having said that, protein, fat, that can help with satiety. Again, the plant-based diet is very carb-rich, isn't it, naturally, which I think is a great thing. Lots of benefits to that, of course. But yeah, it might be that a little bit of protein or even a little bit of fat would help satiate you. Maybe it's just the extra calories that the fat yields. Maybe there's something inherently helpful about the fat that satiates you as well. That's something that, sadly, because I don't like to make too many things trial and error, but that's something that sadly is going to be a little bit anecdotal for you and is going to be, reliant on you testing a little bit here. But yeah, I would have thought for you it might be a calorie question, and you just need to lower the volume and find a way to get more calories so you can hit that satiation while still feeling full. Right now, I think you're only ticking one of those two boxes, but I think that's the big breakthrough for you on this Indiana Jones, understanding the difference. I can't believe I'm calling you Indiana Jones, but understanding the difference between fullness and satiation. They are two different things. Shouldn't the metric basically be eat when you are hungry and eat until you are full or satisfied? The word unlimited is more of a marketing term that gets people to believe in miracles. Yeah, I agree with the latter. Sorry, the first part of the question, shouldn't the metric basically be eat when you are hungry and eat until you are full or satiated? Yes, it should. Yes, it should. But sadly, for people that can't really trust those hunger signals, for people with the passive emotional eating, for people who find it who are struggling with consistency right now, have a poor relationship with food, have problems with junk food, maybe even food addictions, do you think they're going to be able to trust themselves to do that? Do you think they're just going to stop eating when they're physically full? No, of course not. Human behavior is so much more complex than that. So yeah, I would agree, in an ideal world, intuitive eating is the answer. It is absolutely something I promote, but I think there are caveats there about the practicality of intuitive eating. I think engineering your diet a bit more, thinking about the metrics a bit more, thinking about the data, the calories, the macronutrients, the breakdown of foods is absolutely necessary for a lot of people, especially when they have a specific health goal, like weight loss, like muscle gain. If you don't care about these things and you just focused on your overall health and well-being, you can be a bit more free to eat intuitively, if you will. So, yeah, no, I don't agree that the metric should be eat when you're hungry and eat until you're full and satisfied. I don't think that's the metric. I think that's the ultimate ideal. I do think it could be a bit utopian for many people, but I think that's the ultimate goal with all of my clients, really, is to get them to that stage. That's the stage that I feel like I'm at, but you should still note that doesn't mean I eat as much as I want. That doesn't mean that I'm still fallible. I'm not still fallible. Like, that doesn't mean that I don't still suffer from cravings and once in a while give in to those things. I absolutely do. I'm not perfect. So it's an ideal rather than a metric, but I do agree with your basic sentiment for sure. Michelle Ann Vlog says, good morning. Good morning, Michelle. Thanks for being here today. Mary says, good morning from Florida. Beautiful. Welcome. I get wonderful information from you talking fast. Yeah, a lot of people cite that as being a problem with me talking too fast. That's one of those things that, you know, I'm obviously very willing to take feedback here. I often execute on that feedback. But one of the things I'm really resistant to change on is slowing down my speech. I understand it, I get it. It's just one of those things I'm not going to change. And there's a couple of reasons for that. I'm not going to explain them all. But I think the main one is the people that get me, the people that think fast, they follow me. And they stay with me on it. And I shouldn't be slowing down without being too disrespectful here, although I'm obviously going to come across as disrespectful, the stragglers that really struggle to keep up with my speed of thought. It sounds very arrogant, but honestly, it's just how I feel. Like, if you can't keep up, my channel's probably not for you, because I do want to get lots of good information in. So it's one of those things that ultimately is sort of comply or goodbye. Like, if you don't like it, I'm willing to accept your feedback, I will consider it, but there's things I'm willing to change on, there's things I'm not willing to change, and the speed at which I talk and the way in which I talk, I'm not going to change on it. A lot of people as well say to me, if you dull down your language a bit, Ryan, if you didn't use so many fancy words, you might have more viewers. I agree, it's probably true, but I want the quality of viewer. I want to actually help people. I want transformation rather than numbers. And I think that my style of speech allows for me to check those two boxes. I don't think it allows me to check the box of growing my channel optimally or communicating to as many people as I potentially could. But I want the quality of interaction. I actually want to help people transform. So I'm going to do it in my way, and it's going to work, and it is working, if you see my thought on that. I suppose the one caveat is those that English isn't their first language. I think that's an argument I should take on board, that I do speak too fast for those people. That's fair enough. But if you can't keep up, that's on you. It's a skill. Listening, thinking. I mean, IQ is something, I don't think I have an IQ. I don't have an IQ, really high IQ, by the way, folks. I just said I don't have an IQ. I've got no IQ whatsoever. I don't have an high IQ, folks, but it does seem as though people with higher IQs can think fast and speak fast. So maybe that says something nice about me. That's a joke, folks. I do not believe that I have a particularly high IQ. I've never had it measured, or I haven't in about 10 years. I don't think I have a particularly high IQ. But if you have a low IQ, you might struggle to follow along with some ideas. Not on my channel, but it's in the same way as somebody that's not well versed with reading. They're not going to pick up a Carl Jung book and get every element of it. They're not going to pick up Dostoevsky and understand it perfectly, are they? Of course. Not that I can understand a Carl Jung book all that well, just so you guys know. But yeah, if you can't keep up, I don't know what to say. My channel's not for you. Why can't I comment? Is it shut off? It's ironic, Robin, because you've literally commented saying that. So you're here, it's worked. Perpetually annoyed. I like Ranty Ryan. He's a good bloke. He gets a bit carried away. But he is funny from time to time. People seem to like him. Yeah, I don't think you promote eating disorders. That's ridiculous. Yeah, classic. Yeah, no, people say a lot of stupid things. There is that. Yeah, me too, by the way. Again, it could come across in my rant earlier, like, oh, I think I'm perfect and everyone else is stupid. I'm not naive enough to believe that that's the case whatsoever. I do lots of stupid things. I've done lots of stupid things in my life, so same as we all have. The goal is to get a bit smarter with age. So hopefully that's happening. My hair is shocking today, folks. What do you think of high raw diets? I think unnecessary. I think you could be missing out on a couple of things, namely calories. I do think there are benefits. Again, I think an exclusively raw diet would be crazy. I think a high raw diet for lots of people is probably a really good idea. It's not one that I follow, and it's not particularly my approach. I think there's a lot of arguments for raw food that I strongly disagree with. And there's a lot of anti-sentiment in the sort of high raw, fully raw world. Anti-cooked food sentiment that I just absolutely cannot get on board with. It's absolute potty and it's not scientific in the slightest. But does that mean that I don't think lots of raw fruits and veggies are good? No, of course not. I think lots of raw fruits and veggies are wonderful. Absolutely. Steph found your channel and was like a light coming on. That's really kind, Steph. Thank you. Really pleased to hear that. Been struggling following Fast 800. I don't know what that is. I think I've heard of it, but I'm not entirely sure. Whilst being vegetarian, everything you say makes complete sense. Well, that's very kind. Thank you. I'm actually feeling full, but not overeating. Good. Now plant-based. Oh, Steph has now clarified. Fast 800 equals low carb and high protein. Got it. Sounds awful. Minakshi Diori, apologies for pronunciation. Can we eat white rice to lose weight in a vegan diet? Sure you can. Yeah, white rice is great. All rice is great. I would say that brown is the best, but white rice is great. Perpetually annoyed. I like your fast talking because I think fast. That's it. I find slow talkers annoying. I'm so with you. I find lots of ums and ers, even though if I rewatch my videos, I'm sure there's a couple of those in there. But I find that really annoying. So I'd much rather talk fast and just have the people that can keep up with me, that really click with me on that and find that useful. I'd rather have that as my audience than a massive audience of people that don't really click, don't really align, don't really get my ideas. Does that make sense? Or I'm being really inauthentic in the presentation of that. Which you have to do, like you have to play the YouTube game. I don't come on my camera and be totally myself. I just talk about weight loss here. There's lots of other opinions I have that I don't voice on this channel. That might be smart. You could call that inauthentic. Does that make me terrible? No, of course not. You got to play the game a bit. But yeah, that's just one thing I won't change on the speed at which I talk. I'm just not having it. I'm not having it. I like the fast talking. I can't stay focused to slow talkers. Yeah, thank you. That's good feedback, folks. I have to put slow talkers on 2x feed. Yeah, I've never once heard somebody tell me that they put my YouTube videos on 2x feed or any fast forward because it probably isn't necessary. I've never heard anyone say that, but I know a lot of people do it to other videos, but not mine. Should we limit our daily pasta intake? Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. It depends how... Obviously, I don't know anything about you. I don't know anything about your goals, Rachel. I don't know anything about how much pasta you have. But maybe you should. I wouldn't want you eating, you know, as much pasta as you wanted. So I suppose in that sense, yeah, you should limit that. You shouldn't eat... If the opposite of unlimited is limited, then I'd rather you have limited than unlimited, if that makes sense. So to answer your question, yeah, you should limit it, but it depends how much you're already having as to what that limit looks like. How many pounds of food do you eat a day? I've got no idea, frankly, Ava. No idea. Lynn says a newly fledged plant-based diet, plant-based eater, just a month in. Welcome, Lynn. Well done, you. Let me know if there's anything I can help with. Your videos are very informative and are healing my fear of carbs. Good to hear. Thank you so much. Good evening from Perth, Western Australia. Hi, Dorothy. Beautiful city, so I hear. Beautiful part of the world. Welcome. Thanks for joining me today, Dorothy. I'm just going to scroll up the chat, folks, because no doubt I'll have missed one or two here. I'm not sure. Any questions, folks? If you do have any more, I've got a couple more minutes before I have to shoot, so you can pop them in the chat. And hopefully I can get round to one or two before I go here. As always, you can head over. I haven't put the link in the bio for once. Missed a little advertising marketing opportunity there, didn't I? But you can head over to naturalweightlossmastery.com for more resources. I've got cookbooks. You can book a coaching consultancy call with me there. You can learn more about the Natural Weight Loss Mastery Academy. There's too many things. I've got too many things over there at this stage. The only thing you can't do over there is inquire about my coaching services, but send me a DM on Instagram. If you're not following me on Instagram, it's at Ryan Adams UK. That's at Ryan Adams UK. So follow me on Instagram, and if you want to learn about coaching, just drop me a DM there. I talk about it quite a lot over there. Folks, I'm going to hit the road. I don't think there's any more questions coming in. There's also a delay because if I get them on my phone, they don't actually appear on my laptop until like 30 seconds. Oh, there's a bunch coming through. That's hilarious, just as I said that. What do you think of a girl running 12 miles a day? I think it's probably excessive. Again, depends what your goals are. I think for most people that's going to be extremely excessive in terms of running. Running's no joke in terms of the toll it can take on the body. So I'm sure you do have rest days. I'm sure you don't run 12 miles a day, 7 days of the week, 365 days a year. But yeah, I would say initially that probably sounds like quote unquote too much, but who am I to tell you without knowing anything about you? Depends what you want. Brenda, do you support the idea of a 50-50 plate? Again, it's sort of like what I highlighted earlier on, Brenda. Like, it depends. It depends on so many things. It's sort of contextual. I can't advise because I don't know what the goal is. If you're looking to do a 50-50 plate because you've hit a plateau and you've taken on all of my other strategies for getting through plateaus, I do support your idea of a 50-50 plate. Do I think the average person coming into weight loss needs to go as low as a 50-50 plate? No, I don't. Do I think there are many people out there who would suffer from going to a 50-50 plate and would be much better off having 70 to 80% starch in terms of not the calories, but the look of their meals anyway, visually? I think there are a lot of people that would really suffer from going to 50-50. So do I support the idea? Yeah, in certain circumstances. That's my nuanced answer. Again, that's that nuance I've been talking about since the start of this stream here. We're missing that so much. Igor says, I'm a CrossFitter and left weight. I don't know what that means. Lift weight, I guess. So I'm now worried about not getting enough protein. It's hard to get 80 grams, let alone the 1.8 grams per pound of body weight. Yeah, I think the 1.8 grams is absolutely excessive. 80 grams, so easy on a plant-based diet, so easy on a plant-based diet. Beans, lentils, tofu, tempeh. You know, you can pick it up from various cereals. You pick it up in everything anyway, but those more concentrated foods, nuts and seeds, if you're getting enough calories, Igor, you're going to get quote-unquote enough protein. I appreciate you obviously want a little bit more, than what the average person wants in terms of protein, perhaps like myself. As in myself being average in terms of protein, I don't go for crazy amounts. I am conscious of it, but not crazy. I probably have more than most of my clients because of my training schedule, but not massively more anyway. I think you'd be even another step up from me, given what you do. Although I don't know how much you do that and how much you sort of, want to build muscle. I don't know what your goals are, do I? But in terms of gain or lose, because that would make a difference to my answer too, of course. But yeah, beans, lentils, if you're getting enough calories, you're going to be close. Then on top of that, maybe you want to displace your diet a bit more with sort of more protein-rich foods. Maybe less whole grains, more beans. So you're still getting that massive starch component, but maybe less potatoes, more beans, blah, blah, blah. Just the protein-rich plant foods. Just fill your diet with more of those. And you can easily get 80 grams. I'm sure you can easily get 80 grams. Just give it a shot and you'll see how easy it is. I'm not a big fan of protein powders, but you can get some semi-clean ones out there, and that might be helpful to you. Do you think people who think they're overeating on a whole foods plant-based diet are really following all the rules? It's hard for me to believe that if you're truly eating right, you can gain weight. Well, this is a really good comment, so I don't mean to pick on you here, but this is a really good illustration of what I was talking about earlier. I don't know if you were here, the particular person that asked this question at the start of my live stream, but one of the things I spoke about today was how a lot of people comment on videos and they comment on Instagram posts and they say, that's not right. You can eat as much as you want. And if you're not doing that, and if you're not losing weight or if you're gaining weight, you're just not consistent. You're not doing it fully. You're cheating. Again, you hear that a lot in the high carb movement as well. If it's not working for you, you must be cheating. And it's like, what a ridiculous, because sometimes that's the case, by the way, but still, what a ridiculous blanket statement. You have to do a deeper analysis with the person in question. So yeah, I do agree. Sometimes I think there are people that aren't consistent and then they say, oh, why am I not losing weight? And it's like, well, because you're inconsistent. It's not because you're overeating, it's because you're inconsistent. So I agree. I think there are lots of those people out there. But I do still think it's absolutely possible, and no worries, you're just confirming that you did come in late. But I do think it's absolutely possible to eat the right foods, but simply overeat. Absolutely. Perpetually annoyed, I followed all the rules, I gained weight until I took Ryan's advice. And sorry, our conversation was a couple of months ago, wasn't it, Perpetually Annoyed? If I remember correctly, you won the free coaching call, didn't you, that I did a couple of months back. I think it was in line with my 5 years vegan. I think that was why you had the coaching call. But if I'm not mistaken, with you, it really was a question of overeating, wasn't it? Eating really, really well, eating pretty cleanly on the whole. Yeah, you're just confirming it was the case. Yeah, so again, it's no surprise to me. I've had this so many times now. It's so funny how an idea to me that is so normal and so provable and something I've got so much experience dealing with somehow comes across as so offensive and so outrageous and preposterous and impossible to somebody else. It's just life, isn't it? Like, it's life. I'm not going to get hung up on it, but it is interesting, isn't it? It is interesting. I've just had enough conversations with people to know that this overeating, and I've worked with enough people to know that this overeating, and I've experienced weight loss myself. Like I know this, I've lived this stuff myself. To know that you do need to be considerate of portions on a plant-based diet, or that lots of people do. Again, it depends on so many different things about you and your goals, but lots of people do. And yeah, there are miracles, and there are, you know, very glamorous highlight reels on social media. Take that stuff with a pinch of salt, folks. All right, I'm hitting the road. Doesn't seem to be any more questions. Been an absolute pleasure today, folks. I know it's been a good old rant, but hopefully I answered a couple of your questions too, and you got something out of my little rant today. Thanks for your time. More resources, naturalweightlossmastery.com. Thanks for all your support here. See you very soon, no doubt. Thanks. Bye.